Welcome to the Office of Tax Appeals. My name is Suzanne Brown. I'm the lead administrative law judge who will be conducting the hearing for this case. On today's panel, as you heard, in addition to myself, we have Judges Long and Cui, and also present is our stenographer, Ms. Alonzo, who will be transcribing the oral hearing. What I'm going to do is review the logistics about how this electronic hearing will work. And after that, we will officially go on the record. And at that time, I will ask the parties to identify themselves for the record. In response to the COVID-19 state of emergency, in response to the COVID-19 state of emergency, the Office of Tax Appeals will be conducting today's hearing electronically with the agreement of all parties and participants. All participants, including the ALJs, are video conferencing into this hearing. This change will not affect the fair and objective hearing of tax appeals. Today's proceedings will be live streamed to the public, and a certified shorthand reporter will also transcribe the oral hearing. The transcript and video recording are part of the public record and will be posted on OTA's website. If at any point you get disconnected from this video hearing, please rejoin the hearing as soon as possible and state that you are rejoining after being disconnected. If you cannot rejoin by video, please use your phone and call into the hearing using the backup telephone number for this Webex hearing. That phone number is listed on the notice of oral hearing that my office sent to all parties. If for some reason you are unable to rejoin the hearing either by video or telephone, please call Claudia Lopez and she will assist you. During today's hearing, OTA asks that you please say your name before you speak. This is especially important if we have anyone participating only by telephone, because they will not be able to see the video of you speaking. And for this reason, we ask that you do not use the chat feature in Webex. There is a microphone icon on your screen that will allow you to mute and unmute yourself. We ask that you please mute your microphone when you are not speaking in order to reduce background noise. But please remember to unmute your microphone when it is time for you to start speaking again. Please speak slowly and clearly and directly into your microphone. And please do not speak over each other or interrupt when someone else is speaking, because that interferes with our stenographer transcribing a clear record. Please answer everything verbally out loud so that the stenographer can transcribe what you have said. If the stenographer cannot hear or understand someone who's speaking, she has permission to interrupt the hearing at any time to get clarification. Please note that these proceedings are being broadcast live, and any information shared on the screen is viewable to anyone who is watching this hearing on the internet. All right. With all that being said, I think we are ready. Ms. Alonzo, are you ready to go on the record? She's giving me a thumbs up. So I will say at this point that we are now on the record for the appeal of Imran Mullick, and this is OTA case number 1903-4515. Today is Tuesday, July 28th, and it is shortly after 10 a.m. We are holding this hearing by video conference, but the location for the record is technically Sacramento, California. This hearing is before the Office of Tax Appeals. OTA is an independent agency that is separate from the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, and also separate from the Franchise Tax Board and any other tax agency. My name is Suzanne Brown. I'm the lead administrative law judge, ALJ, who will be conducting the hearing for this case. Also on today's panel, in addition to myself, we have Judge Andrea Long and Judge Andrew Cui. While I am the lead ALJ for purposes of conducting this hearing, my co-panelists and I are equal decision makers and may ask questions of either party during the hearing at any time. Further, our panel of 3 ALJs will decide all of the issues presented to us, and each of us will have an equal vote in making the decisions for the hearing. And also present is our stenographer, Ms. Alonso. Next, I will ask each of the parties to identify themselves for the record. I will start with the appellant. Mr. Mullick, could you please state your name for the record? I cannot hear. If Mr. Mullick, if you could unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead. Please identify yourself for the record.
My name is Imran Mullick, and I am the appellant.
Very good. Thank you. And CDTFA, could each of the representatives please identify themselves for the record? Ms. Jimenez, do you want to start?
Judge Brown, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. Good morning. I'm representing the CDTFA.
Hi, I'm Jason Parker. I'm the Chief of Headquarters Operations Bureau, and I'm with the CDTFA.
This is Kevin Smith. I'm from the CDTFA Legal Department. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I will repeat for the record, in response to the COVID-19 state of emergency, the Office of Tax Appeals will be conducting today's hearing electronically with the agreement of all parties and participants. All participants, including the ALJs, are video conferencing into this hearing. I'm going to just clarify the issue today and then move on to identifying and admitting the exhibits. I'm just going to confirm that we discussed during the pre-hearing conference, and I confirmed in my pre-hearing conference minutes and orders that the issue today is whether adjustments are warranted to the measure of unreported taxable sales for the audit period. And the audit period is May 15th, 2009 through December 31st, 2011. Let me ask first, the appellant, Mr. Mullick, can you confirm, is that your understanding of the issue?
That's my understanding, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and CDTFA, can you confirm also?
Judge Brown, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me to identify myself before I start speaking again. This is Judge Brown. I am now going to move on to identifying and admitting the documentary exhibits. We have received documentary exhibits from both parties to be considered for admission into evidence. Our regulations require that proposed exhibits must be submitted at least 15 days in advance of the hearing, and both parties submitted their proposed exhibits by that deadline. Also, the parties have not indicated any objection to the other party's exhibits. And I will also remind everyone that once the exhibits are admitted, either party can refer to any exhibit that has been admitted into evidence. So CDTFA can refer to the appellant's exhibits, the appellant can refer to CDTFA's exhibits. It doesn't matter who submitted them. All right. First, I will address appellant's exhibits. And my office organized these exhibits and sent them out to the parties last week. These were just a compilation of exhibits that we received from appellant, and we numbered them as exhibits 1 through 3, and exhibits 1 and 2 are photos, and exhibit 3 is pages from the audit working papers. Okay. Mr. Mullick, can we just confirm that these documents that we've marked as exhibits 1 through 3 contain the correct pages and all the documents that you intend to be admitted into evidence? Is that correct?
Imran Mullick, yes, ma'am, that is correct. Although I do have a package, an earlier package, which is the one that I was going to refer to. It's essentially the same. I will refer to the one that I recently got, the 3 packages that I got. I will refer to those as well, but I based all of it really essentially on the first packet that I got.
Are there any pages sorry, this is Judge Brown. Are there any pages from your earlier package that didn't get included in what we sent you last week?
So I think the order may be different. So
I did reorganize them. This is Judge Brown. I did reorganize them so that we could refer to them by number, so that rather than trying to describe a page as this is a photograph of a table and chairs, that everyone could say this is exhibit 1, page 3, or something specific.
Understood. Yeah. So the one that I sort of organized my whole presentation on is the first package that I got, which was.
Do you mean, this is Judge Brown, do you mean your opening brief?
Yeah. So exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I have your opening brief. This is Judge Brown. I just want to clarify, as I think I discussed during the pre-hearing conference, to the extent that you submitted written argument, all of that will be considered, but we just don't mark it as evidence. We call that briefing. But all of your briefs, the one from May 2019, and then there were a few more, and including your the statement that you submitted just a couple of weeks ago, all of that will be part of the briefing. It's part of the record. I just want to make sure that there aren't any additional documents to be moved into evidence that were somehow omitted.
Imran Mullick, understood. I was just referring to this one particular package that has all the exhibits marked and numbered. And so I was following those numbers, and I will be sort of pointing out the different exhibits by those numbers. So,
All right. This is Judge Brown. Mr. Mullick, hold on.
so this package is numbered 071320-1903451 Imran Mullick.
Is this I'm talking about the exhibits that my office sent you last week. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Right. It was maybe 2 weeks ago. But
right, yeah. It was around, I think it went out on July 14th. So 2 weeks ago. This is Judge Brown. I believe we're talking about the same document.
Well, I guess we could proceed, and then we'll see if you're on the same page, so to speak.
Well, if you look at the document that you're referring to, it has a list of your exhibits, and there's exhibits 1 through 3, and then the different photos are numbered. Exhibit 1, I believe, has 10 photos. Exhibit 2 has 4 photos.
Right. So what I have here is the initial one, which is I think total of 85 exhibits.
85. I'm sorry. This is Judge Brown. 85 exhibits.
Yeah. So they're numbered almost 85 pages, and they're all numbered.
Oh.
And then the ones that you sent us 2 weeks ago, I have those as well. But I was wondering if you have the one with the 85 exhibits, so that I could refer to them.
This is Judge Brown. When you're talking about 85 pages, do you mean the the revised exhibit index from CDTFA?
Right. Exactly.
Yes. Those will be included as well, but I'm first addressing what you've submitted, and then you can also refer, we're also going to admit what CDTFA has submitted. Okay. And yes, so the 85 pages is CDTFA's revised exhibit index, and that's exhibits A through J. Right.
Yes. Right. So that's the one I was.
Okay. Well, this is Judge Brown. I first wanted to admit the documents that you submitted, and then next I will admit the documents that CDTFA submitted. So they will all come into evidence and you can refer to either one.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So CDTFA, do you have, this is Judge Brown, do you have any objection to admitting appellants exhibits 1 through 3?
Judge Brown, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. No issues with those exhibits.
Okay, thank you. Then appellants exhibits 1 through 3 are admitted. This is Judge Brown. Next, I will move on to CDTFA's revised exhibit index, which is contains exhibits A through J as evidence and totals, I believe, approximately 85 pages. And Mr. Mullick, you previously indicated, or it's my understanding that you do not have any objection to CDTFA's exhibits A through J being admitted the 85 pages. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Then I will say that CDTFA's revised exhibit index and revised exhibits A through J are admitted into evidence. All right. Next, I'm going to move on to identifying who the witnesses will be today. Mr. Mullick, you indicated that you will be testifying as a witness today. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. I will swear you in before you testify. And I will confirm CDTFA does not intend to call any witnesses. Is that correct, Ms. Jimenez?
Judge Brown, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. You are correct. No witnesses for us.
Okay. All right, then I'm just going to briefly go over what our time frame is today. And when I'm done with that, I will swear in Mr. Mullick as a witness, and then we will begin the presentations. I anticipate we'll take a little more than an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes, something like that. We will begin with appellant's presentation, including his testimony, and that will take up to 30 minutes. And then CDTFA may cross-examine the witness, and the ALJs may have questions for the witness. And then after that, CDTFA may make its presentation, which will take up to 15 minutes. And the ALJs may have questions. And then I also included time for appellant to make a rebuttal, which may take up to 10 minutes. I've admitted the evidence and identified the witnesses. Does anyone have any questions before I swear in the witness? Any questions about procedure or process or anything else? Okay, very good. Then I will move on to saying, Mr. Mullick, if you are ready, I will swear you in as a witness. If you could please raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Mullick, you may begin with your testimony and presentation. You have up to 30 minutes.
Very good. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And I wanted to thank everybody for being here. So I wanted to start off by telling you about starting this business and how it was like a shoestring operation, and we started off with essentially nothing. And when we started this business, the whole build out took a lot longer than we expected, and it took us like a good 2 years to actually put the whole thing together. And we were in this process constantly running out of money. Not only were we running out of money, we were severely in debt. And so our goal at that point, but there's so many things going on, and we were in that process, we were like, our main drive was to open the business the way we could. It's called a soft opening or whatever you want to call it. So we just wanted to get going. And And I'm sure you've heard this story before. Anybody who's owned a business or opened a business knows this story, and this is very typical. So when we finally opened, we were absolutely broke. And so this issue of sales tax, collecting sales tax. We went to the Board of Equalization, or we used to be Board of Equalization back then, and we asked the question. So, okay, what about taxes? Do we have to collect taxes? We were told categorically, coffee is food, and there is no tax on food. Okay, well, that's easy enough. We were, so no tax on food. So we were not informed. I have not seen any attempt by anybody, even today, to make sure that when you open a food business, you tell people that, okay, if people are going to end up eating in your establishment, they'll have to pay sales tax. There was nothing in the brochures, no. Anyways, so we opened in May of 2009, and the first year, horrible. In fact, the first 2 years are horrible, which is not surprising for a lot of businesses. So we are running at a loss. Starting off with running at a loss. We have creditors that are trying to keep our head above the water. Okay. And in all of this, there's confusion and all. So we were doing everything right as far as the Board of Equalization is concerned, or is concerned. That we were not collecting taxes. We were not collecting taxes because we were under the impression, we were told, don't collect taxes because you are selling food. Okay, so we did not collect taxes for these many quarters, which is 11 quarters there. So, and I want to reiterate this point that this is something that we did not collect. It was something that it's not like we collected this money and didn't pay it. We just did not collect this money. Okay, there was confusion. There was misinformation, and okay, that's the extent of it. So in 2012, we get audited, and the auditor picks a 2-week period, and he actually sat there and he watched the transactions for 2 weeks and to measure how many people were actually sitting down and how many people were actually having a coffee to go. Now, he picked a certain period of time, which to begin with, it was in the summer, which is busier time of the year for us. Secondly, we have the first 2 years, the third year that we're in, is a completely different business. We have slowly tried to change the business. We noticed from the very beginning that people were coming in and wanting to work in there or hang out in there. And they were asking for more places to sit. Initially we didn't even have the money to buy chairs. We were running on IKEA chairs, which is all we could afford at that point. So we made a decision to say, okay, we will turn this business into, we will sort of court these people who want to sit down. So we moved the business to bring in more people who actually wanted to just hang out and actually work, So that sort of became our reputation, a place where you can hang out and work. But that took a little while. We sort of went from basically not going after those people to actually deciding to go after those people. So that was one point I brought up with the auditor over and over and over again. I said, "You not judge the business on the basis of what is going on today. And please don't do that, because we were a completely different animal when we first opened." So now I wanted to go to exhibit the report of the field audit, which is exhibit 7 on the CDTFA's package. We can't hear you.
Sorry, I tried to unmute. This is Judge Brown. CDTFA's exhibits are marked by letter A through J. So when you say exhibit 7, do you mean?
I think it's
Or do you mean
page.
page 7? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, very good. The auditor's report, and in that you you can see that I'm telling the auditor, even when that we were not busy the first 2 years, and the sitting patterns are different, and then the word of mouth spread and business gradually picked up. And then we also mentioned teapots, outside seating was added, and then and again I brought it up. I said, look, this is not the same pattern. You cannot measure this onto it. So then you see the auditor's position is based on a percentage. So how can you base it on a percentage? The sales were lower in the beginning, the first 2 years, and the taxable sales would be lower. Well, that's kind of a silly position. If we had no seats at all in the beginning, we will have 0 sit-down sale. And if you were to apply the percentage when we added the seats, it will definitely be different. And then he sort of ignores the teapot issues as well. Yeah, I mean, teapots, if you have a teapot where you can go back and refresh the hot water whenever you want, it is more conducive to sitting down and wanting to come in to sit down. It makes a difference, but he sort of like ignored it. And then the ratio that he came up with, 51.71%, is the ratio for those 2 weeks. Okay. Now, we still don't have that ratio. Was the ratio that was that week, the ratio of sit down versus to go orders for that particular 2 weeks was kind of a freak in a way. It's not representative of the overall picture, because he picks these 2 weeks. The weather's nice, people are sort of hanging out, and these patterns shift. The patterns shift because certain times of the year people, want to hang out more, and other times they don't hang out as much. In the rainy seasons, certain days they don't. But anyways, the auditor just fixated on this number of 51.7, and then he based everything on that number. So if we could go to exhibit, it's page 21. So here we are. So this is for the 11 quarters. This is the total amount of sales, 533, 1110, and we reported all of that as non-taxable sales because, again, we are under the impression we're selling food. I mean, and we're not withholding any tax on it. It's not like we collected the tax and didn't give it to the board. We just didn't collect it. You know, because we were misinformed or ignorant or, and I don't know. Anyway, so this is the number. Now, if you can go to page 23. Okay, now this is very instructive. So if you look at the, so this is where all of the auditor's math is. He counts the number of chairs and tables and comes up with a number for seating inside, which is 42. Says total inside seating is 42. And then for the outside, he comes up with a total available seating, outside seating of 32. So that's the total available seating of 32. So he's got these two numbers, 42 and 32 is the number of seats. And once again, I pointed it out to him several times. I said, they have this many seats when we first opened. We added seatings. We added seating because people were asking for it, despite the fact that we were absolutely broke. We're running the business on a loss. We were sort of somehow trying to add seats because all of that meant money even. It was such a touch and go situation that we didn't even have the money to buy tables and chairs. Anyways, so now I would like to go to some of the pictures to show you what the seating actually looked like. Now, if we can go all the way down to some of the pictures. So it's 49, page 49.
Yes. Go
So
ahead.
this is great. And this is from, all of these pictures were posted on Yelp by customers, none by us. I've never posted a picture on Yelp of our place. This is people liking the place from the very beginning, and they're just posting these pictures. So this is essentially the first quarter that we opened. Now, you can see how many seats we have in there. There is no, we have bench seating now on this wall, which will be to the right as you look at it. There is no bench seating there. We have bench seating now to the left against the wall. We don't have that there. There is a sofa back there, which we still do have. And if you look all the way in the back, there is nothing, no seating in the backyard. So this, in essence, was where we started. And now, if you keep going down to, say, pick number 52, you will see that we added this little bench in there. And this is the month following. And And now if you go down to 52, you will see that, again, against the wall, we still don't have any seating, and that seating was not added for another year. So essentially, if you count the number of seats that we had maybe 11 chairs. There were these chairs that we bought from IKEA. Now, if you go down to 54, this is the following year. And so we have, at this point, we've added the benches there. But if you still the number of chairs, if you count the number of chairs, and if you see how many people are actually sitting on this side, you will see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you can possibly 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You can see maybe 4 people on this side. And maybe you can see another 10 people on the other side, which is not visible in this picture. So this number of 42 seats inside, which the auditor used as a basis, is flawed. We did not have, for the first 2 years, did not have 42 chairs. We did not have 42 seats inside. And so you cannot apply that number of 42 at all. And so if you want to look at the other package of pictures that were part of the
This is Judge Brown. Yes, I have the other packet. Go ahead.
and these are all pictures also. Just let's see if I can get in there. Okay, so these, if you look at the first number 2 on the exhibit folder, page 2, you can see that this is a picture of the west side wall. And so essentially we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chairs here. I think we had total of maybe 11 or 12 of these IKEA chairs. And then if you go down here to number 4, you can see that there's the same maybe 10 or 12 chairs, and we still don't have the bench seating on this side. And you can also, again, once again, you can see there's no bench seating on this side. And then here's a picture of the backyard. And once again, the auditor the backyard for the first year was not available at all. For the second year or so, or maybe even the third year, we had this going on in the backyard, which is essentially 2 tables and, again, some plastic IKEA chairs. And we still had construction stuff back there. We were not encouraging people to sit back there. This is a project, we had to sort of get around to it. So here again, the auditor is using a number of 32, which is, we don't have 32 seats back then. So now if we can go back to the CDTFA package of exhibits. So I would like to go back to the exhibit 23, or page 23. And so here on page 23, if you look at it again, you can see that really wrong, because so this is, again, if you look at the total number of, then the auditor calculates the percentages. So for the first 3 years, for the first 3 quarters or the first 4 quarters, he agrees with us that there's no seating outside. Okay, so in his mind, he's being generous and he's saying, well, okay, well, I'm going to give you a break and assume that there's no seating outside. And so I'll still count the inside seating as 42. So he's got a percentage, a number of 56.76% is the ratio of seats available that he applies if there is no seating available outside. So the first year, he agrees with us that there is no seating outside. So he gives us a 0 for the total seating outside. But still, the number of 42 seats inside is flawed. It's not 42. We have maybe 20 seats inside, if we are lucky. So right there, you need another adjustment. For the first quarter, you need another adjustment of at least 50% right there, because we don't have 42 seats inside. Okay, that's one. Then what he does is, again, he comes around and he for the sixth quarter, second quarter, that would be line number 6. Um, 5 and 6, I think he adds the 32 seats. Well, and he says 100% of the seats available, but it's not true. We don't have 42 plus 32 seats available. That's like, again, we have 8 seats available outside, maybe 10 seats at the most, you know. So that number right there should be another adjustment factor right in there to accommodate for that. So, and the same thing applies on the outside seating. Again, 32 and 32. No, there are no 32 seats available. We don't have these 42 seats available inside. We are 51.71% is the percentage for your measured period. That is not. Now, if you look at our numbers today, we're still running at about 45%, despite the fact that we have added so many seats. And again, here, I wanted to show the pictures of our shop today. And I think that's part of the package that
This is Judge Brown. First, I'll say yes. Do you mean your exhibit 2?
yes. So it's
Okay. And Mr. Mullick, let me also just give you a 5-minute warning that you have about 5 minutes left on your 30-minute presentation, but you know that after CDTFA's presentation, you'll have a 10-minute rebuttal, so you can finish up anything that. Go ahead.
okay. Sounds good. Thank you. So then in the packet, we have 14, number 14, which the picture of what it looks like today, 14 and 15. And you look at the place today where we have enhanced it quite a bit. We're still not doing 51% of sit-down, people sitting down, you know. We're still most of it's like 45. I mean, the past 2019, I'm not sure about 2018, we were running about 40, 45. And each year when we improve our seating, the numbers go up. So again, my contention totally is simply this: that all of the total income that went up from when we opened to what we are doing today is basically because we improved the seating, and more people are wanting to sit down. So the percentage need an adjustment factor of at least, I would say 50, 60, 70% need, all of this percentages need to be brought down by another 60%. So we need another column in here that applies the actual available seating adjustment to these numbers, which is based on what was really actually available for people to sit down. You cannot say, oh, the percentage increased, business increased, you increased. No, if we had 0 seats, we would have 0 for here sit down business. If we have 5% seats, we have 5% sit down business. And you cannot ignore the amount of seats that were available for people to sit down. Now, a couple of other things is, well, we should have presented Z tapes and things like that. The auditor's contention was, well, we just did not make a distinction between people who were sitting down and people who were, having to go. So, and he talks about the paper cup data. The paper cup data is, well, we didn't collect that data. We were getting cups from all over the place. Sometimes our coffee vendors were giving us cups. Sometimes we would buy cups and hold on to them for, beyond the period. So it was, that data is not, paper cup data is not going to produce any real results. So essentially the auditor is guessing and he's guessing it very, very poorly, sloppily. And we are a very small, struggling business, and the sloppiness really is, it will destroy us. Essentially, that's what I want to say.
Okay, this is Judge Brown. Thank you, Mr. Mullick. Now I'm going to ask if CDTFA, do you have any questions for this witness?
Judge Brown, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. No questions for the witness.
This is Judge Brown. Thank you very much. I do have a few questions for the witness, but I first will ask if my co-panelists, first I'll say Judge Quee, do you want to ask questions of the witness at this time?
Yes, this is Judge Quee, and I did have a couple of questions that I was just hoping the witness could help me understand some facts a little better. So I guess maybe I could start by saying that the trouble that I'm having grasping this case and this audit is just really because we have this and taxpayer where no taxable sales were reported. So basically what we're doing now is we have to go back and estimate what those taxable sales were based on the available that we have now 10 years after the fact. Trying to figure out what happened in 2009 based on photos, Yelp reviews, and the witness testimony. So in helping me decide what the correct answer is, the question that I have to ask is, was CDTFA's audit projection reasonable and rational? Really, that's the heart of the matter for me. So I understand that there's lots of talk about the chairs because that is some of the information that we have available now. But I don't think the total number of chairs is really always a direct correlation with the taxable ratio of folio orders. on some extent, I get that if you reduce the total number of chairs, that could impact the number of people that decide to stay for here when they order a coffee. But you know, how does that impact? My question is, how does that impact the 51% or the 30% taxable ratios that CTFA came up with? You know, for example, if you went with the 74 chairs that was used during June of 2012, but say, for example, you drop that down to 25 chairs for 2009, but if there were only 20 customers, then changing that number of chairs, to me, it doesn't seem like it would necessarily make a difference in the number of customers that are choosing to stay for here or to go, because it would seem to me that that change would only be impacted if there were no chairs available for the customers, or there were insufficient chairs available for the customers to choose for here as opposed to for go, taking it to go. So that's, I guess, one aspect that I'm having trouble with, is understanding the correlation with reducing the number of chairs to reducing the taxable ratio used by CTFA. So it would kind of help me if the taxpayer could clarify, like, first, for what periods are you requesting an adjustment to the ratios determined by CDTFA? For example, is it 2009 when the business was first started because things were still getting up? Is it 2009 to 2010, or is it the entire audit period? And is it, you know, like a flat adjustment throughout? And then the other thing that would help me, I guess, understand this is just trying to understand why reducing the number of chairs directly impacts the amount of people who would have chosen for to go, you know. And in thinking of that, it really seems like, for me, for example, would you look at the chairs, or would other records, like you know, records for a later period, with people like to show seasonal differences? Did people order more for here to go for the winter versus the summer? And it does seem like CDTFA made an adjustment for that. It looks like the taxable ratio was 30% in 2009 and 30% in the winter months of 2010 and 2011, versus the 51% for the summer months. So I'm just trying to understand how or what additional adjustments are being asked, and what the correct ratios and the taxpayers view would be. If that's kind of, I'm sorry, I took a long time explaining what my concerns were, but if I'm just trying to give the taxpayer an opportunity to help me understand, and also to understand where I'm coming from, what I have to do as my job, but understanding why CDTFA's determination isn't reasonable and rational. And those were the issues that were coming through my head, and I just wanted to share that with the taxpayer to see if he could help me understand better. So that was all I had to say.
Can I respond to that? Okay, so it's a very good question, and I think you're absolutely right. And that is the question. That is essentially what we're doing, is what the auditor is doing and what I'm doing, we're all guessing. Okay, these are 11 quarters that we don't know what actually happened. And so we are guessing as to what actually happened. It's like how many people actually sat down and were sit-down customers, and how many people were actually to-go customers. So my argument simply is that the basic assumptions that the auditor is making are not fair and not correct. And the basic assumption, number one, is the number of seats. So the question we ask is, okay, does having more seats make it more conducive for people to sit down? Well, the answer, number one, is obvious. If we are packed, if we're completely packed, people actually come in, they peek inside sometimes, and they'll leave. People also have a comfort level of how close they want to sit next to. Even if the seats are available, sometimes if it is not up to their comfort level, they will leave if they want to come in and sit down. But the point is, the number of seats available for somebody to sit down has a direct correlation to whether it'll be a sit-down customer or not. So if you can imagine a place which has 2 tables and a couple of chairs versus a place that has 50, chairs and tables, and is more like conducive to, has more ambiance, more feel for you to want to sit down. Even if you walked in and you said, I just want to get a cup of coffee, you will be like, just by looking at the place, it will be more conducive to say, okay, I'm going to sit down and drink it here. So the amount of seats makes a difference, and it makes a direct difference. And that people were explicitly asking for more seats. People were explicitly saying that we want more places. People were explicitly asking us, when will you fix the backyard? When will you add more seats to the backyard? We couldn't do any of those because our finances would not allow us to do those things. So it is a direct percentage. So if the auditor is coming up with numbers that are essentially very approximate and based on number of seats available, I mean, he is setting it up. It's like, okay, you have 42 seats and you have 32 outside. So the outside seats are not available. So we will give you 0 on those and apply that percentage. He is obviously admitting that the number of seats matter. If you have more seats outside, more people are going to sit outside, which is obviously the case. But if you don't have seats even inside, you will have fewer people. Even right now, I'm thinking about improving the quality of our seats. That makes people want to sit down too. And then you get to a point where you say, okay, maybe we don't want this place to be too comfortable. We don't want people to be hanging out too long either. So then you want them to be sort of like, okay, some comfortable seats, some not very comfortable seats. And so all of that stuff. But the point is, the number of seats available is a direct percentage-wise thing that should be taken into account. Now, I can tell you exactly how the seats were added. Okay. And then you can, I can approximate how the different seats were added. So for the first year, we don't have 42 seats available. Maybe we have 20 seats available for the whole year. For the second year, again, we don't have these 32 outside available. We have maybe 8 or 10 available. And then once again, you cannot apply 100% of the 51%. You would have to do, the way to do it would be, okay, how many seats were actually available? And then you turn that into a percentage, and then you apply it. I mean, I can do the math on it and give you an approximate number, but I think by the end of the 11th quarter, we were pretty close to 70. We were still not 74 seats. I mean, total, that is. But he did give us a variance on the outside, because outside is really, in all honesty, not available. We have northern exposure, which means that there's no sun back there, and it gets pretty cold. So essentially from October onward, October to March, there's no sunlight back there. So there's even now, there's very, very few people that want to sit back there. So again, the point is, we are trying to guess. The auditor's guessing, and I think he's guessing. I mean, this is huge. I mean, 51.71% based on a 2-week, pattern that he's applying, then based on the number of seats that are not available. So 51% 1 week, 2 weeks worth of a busy 2 weeks. So when people wanted to sit inside, and then the number of seats that are available that were not available. I mean, the whole ratio needs to be readjusted under the light of at least 60% less seats for the first 2 years, and then for the last 3 quarters, I think we can say maybe based on still we're not at 74 seats, so it's still not 74. We would need an adjustment of maybe 30% or 40% on those last 3 quarters. So I would say an adjustment of at least 60% the first 7 or 8 quarters, and then the last 3 quarters, an adjustment of maybe at least 40%. Yeah, because I think it's based on very flawed assumption, and again. We chatted. I chatted with the auditor because he was there every day. We chatted, and I brought it up with him every day, and he nodded his head. He agreed with me. He said, "Yeah, that's true. It was true." But here we are, 10 years later.
This is Judge Kui. Thank you, Mr. Mullick. And I did have one short question. You had mentioned in your opening presentation that CDTFA and the CDTF, with BOE, and that BOE advised you that your sales were not going to be taxable. And I was just wondering if you have any, if you ever got that in writing from BOE, or if you have any record of that advice.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get it in writing, and we went up there, and I wish I had gotten it in writing, and I didn't think of that because, like I said, our plate was more than full at that point. We just went up there and so okay, so we have to collect sales tax, and they said no, coffee is food, and food is not taxable. Now, again, and my understanding, of course. Yeah, I've gone to Starbucks, I've gone to Pete's, and all. They never tax you, even if you sit down and not. Later, of course, I find out that they have an agreement with the CDTFA where the CDTFA charges them a flat rate, which is somehow confidential information. I don't know if I could even subpoena it for this hearing, but I think that number is whatever CDTFA charges Starbucks and Pete's is a problem. I am pretty sure it's not 51.7%. And they give them a pretty good deal. I mean, again, like I said, that's 51.71% is not even, fair number for anybody, really. It just happened to be that number for that particular 2 weeks. And despite the fact that it was, it varies quite a bit. And I understand that for a few quarters, he gave us this, no seating outside, so you get to pay only, a percentage, 56% off of that. Taxable ratio 29.25%. But I think that's got to be cut in less than half. I mean, yeah, even that, because we just could not seat that many people. People were not sitting down that much. We were just, and our sales are poor. I mean, our sales, if you look at, we were not doing much, you know. And we broke the business up by sort of like, okay, we'll quote these people who want to come in and sit down. And sort of like that became like, oh, okay, you must have been doing that from day one. We were not.
This is Judge Quee. Thank you, Mr. Mullick, and I will turn it back over to the lead Judge Brown at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Judge Quee and Mr. Mullick. Judge, I will now turn to Judge Long and ask, do you have any questions for the witness at this time? I think you are muted, Judge Long.
Sorry, this is Judge Long. I have no questions.
Okay. This is Judge Brown. I will have a couple of questions for the witness at this time. Mr. Mullick, if you could turn to CDTFA's exhibits, if you could go to page 50. If you see that photo of the outside of the cafe.
Yes. So this is the CTFA's exhibit. Yes.
Yes, and
Right.
it indicates at the top that it was posted to Yelp on June 7th, 2009.
Correct. Yes.
I wanted to ask about the bench in front of the cafe. Do you agree that that bench was there in June of 2009?
Yes, that could have been there. We actually experimented with the little bench for a little while. And what ended up happening with that was that, unfortunately, 24th Street is not very conducive to having benches outside. So what ended up happening was that we started getting a lot of people who wanted to sit on the bench and not be our customers. And then, of course, there's a liquor store around the corner, and they would go to the liquor store and buy alcohol and come into our store and get a paper cup and pour it in there, pour their alcohol in there and sit there. So we had to pull those benches back in. It became a nuisance. And so we experimented with that for just a few months, I think.
This is Judge Brown. Do you recall, you said a few months, so do you recall when you specifically when you took the bench away from the front area?
I don't recall, and I'm kind of surprised that I think we had another bench, and in this picture there's just one. But the benches essentially were all, it's sort of considered to-go sales anyways. Anybody who wants to sit and drink benches outside, we wouldn't sit in paper cup. So we were bussing cups and things from the benches outside. So I think we had them for maybe a couple of months, at the most, maybe 1 quarter or something like that. But it became kind of a real problematic thing that we had a lot of just hanging out.
This is Judge Brown. Thank you. I'll move on to my next question. Mr. Mullick, you indicated that later in the audit period, the cafe added teapots. Did you have a menu did you have printed menus or photos of the menus that showed when you did add teapots or when there were no teapots on the menu? I mean, I understand when I say teapots on the menu, when the customers when could the customer start ordering tea in a teapot? And do you have any old menus that would show when that was?
Yes, ma'am. I may have some old menus. I will probably have to look them up. But we always served tea, as the auditor pointed out, that we always had tea on the menu. However, there was a difference. The difference was we added a whole menu of teas with the teapots. So, like right now, if you walk in there, you have like a dozen different teas. We have several herbal teas and several, green, different kinds of black teas. So we have a whole tea menu. Initially, for the first couple of years, we just had tea. Yeah. So when you would order tea, you would just get a black tea. And so slowly we added all these different teas with the teapot, which is kind of a really cool thing to do. Is that you just drink tea, it's a loose leaf tea, and then you can sort of sit there and sip your tea, and then you can bring your teapot back, and we can give you more hot water. So that actually makes people want to hang out more and come in more also, if you have a teapot.
Right. This is Judge Brown. It's my understanding from reading the paperwork, that the auditor asked if you had purchase invoices of when you bought the teapots, but you did not have those, correct?
I may have those. I will have to go. I don't think the auditor ever asked us for the teapots. Or maybe I showed it to him. I'm not sure. But I think he knew when we added the teapots, and there was no contention on that. The only contention was that he felt that it was not relevant, whether or not. He said that having teapots doesn't make a whole lot of difference because you have tea on the menu anyways. So that never was sort of like a point of contention. In other words, he wouldn't have adjusted anything based on when we added the teapots. To him, it was irrelevant.
Okay. And then this is Judge Brown. I have one more question. It's just to clarify something. In your briefing, Mr. Mullick, you indicated that the measure in dispute is $219,534, but the audit work papers that I looked at seem to show that the measure is $206,978. So it's a difference in measure of about, say, $13,000. Is the $206,978 amount of the measure, is that incorrect?
I'm not sure. I think there might have been an interest by the time they did the math. They might have added the interest to it. Maybe that's why the two numbers are different. But the actual number might have been 206,000 or something like that. But yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Judge Brown. I understand then if you were including interest in your calculation, that may explain the discrepancy. Right, then I'm done with my questions for the witness for now. So we will move on to CDTFA's presentation. Ms. Jimenez, if you are ready to begin, you indicated that you would take about 15 minutes. You can go ahead whenever you are ready.
Judge Brown, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. Appellant operated a coffee shop in the Mission District area of San Francisco. It had that typical table and chairs plus benches, sofa, and fireplace. There's a free and fast Wi-Fi outlets and extension cords. It kind of created that environment that was suitable for working, studying, and writing. So it attracted the laptop crowd. And you will see that on the Yelp reviews and photos on your Exhibit J, starting on page 62. The appellant operated this cafe from May 15, 2009 through December 31st, 2011 as a sole proprietor, and that is also the liability period. On January 1st, 2012, appellant created a limited liability corporation with himself as the only beneficiary. So appellant sold coffee, tea, and pastries and had seats for 42 people inside and seating for 32 people outside. During the audit period, total sales of approximately $533,000 was reported, and a deduction of the same amount was claimed for sales of exempt food sales. Basically, appellant reported 0 taxable sales and no sales tax for the entire liability period. Copies of federal income tax return for 2009 and 2010, profit and loss statement for 2011, cash register Z-tape reports, and purchase invoices were provided. Since sales tax reimbursement was not charged on the for here sales, the department performed a test of sales to compute the taxable sales ratio. Appellant was requested to keep track of the to-go sales and the for here sales for a 2-week period. The cash register was reprogrammed.
Ms. Jimenez, can I interrupt you for just a second? We're getting some background noise. Can I ask Mr. Mullick if you can mute your microphone?
Sure. I think I muted it.
There you go. Now you are muted. Ms. Jimenez, I apologize for interrupting. Please proceed.
All right, so appellant was requested to keep track of the to-go sales and for here sales for a 2-week period. The cash register was reprogrammed to track these 2 types of sales. Cash register Z-tapes for the period of June 26, 2012 through July 9, 2012 were then provided to the department. During this time period, appellant had total sales of approximately $9,700 and taxable sales of around $5,000. From this, a taxable ratio of 51.71% was computed, and that would be on your Exhibit B, page 23. Now, the department only used the 51.71% taxable sales ratio for the spring and summer season, and this is the 2nd and 3rd quarters of 2010 and 2011. Now, to account for the fall and winter, which is the 1st and 4th quarters, the department compared the total seating for both inside and outside, which is 74 chairs, to the indoor seats of 42 chairs. Then a ratio of indoor chairs to total chairs of 56.76% was calculated. This indoor chair ratio was applied to the computed taxable ratio of 51.71%, computing a lower taxable ratio of 29.35%. So this 29.35% was applied for all of 2009 and for the 1st and 4th quarters of 2010 and 2011. The department gave the appellant the benefit of the doubt that the outside seating was not used during this time. The calculation can be found on your Exhibit B, page 22. We want to point out that this greatly benefit appellant, as there are many nice days during the fall and winter where the outside seating could be used. The audit calculation presumed that the interior seating was the only available space for 21 of the 33 months, which is 64% of the audit period. Once again, this presumption provides a benefit in the form of a lower taxable dine-in percentage for these periods. If you take a look at the Yelp reviews, Exhibit J, page 65, On June 7, 2009, one reviewer mentioned that there's a table and chairs in the patio. In June 11, 2009, another reviewer on your page 68 mentioned that there's a large patio with some tables. Now, a different reviewer on January 27, 2010, a reviewer stated that there are loads of outdoor seating. That's on your page 71. So the department believes that appellant has benefited from the lower taxable ratio used in the audit for periods when appellant stated that he did not have outside seating. So the department applied 2 taxable sales ratio to reported total sales for the respective periods, computing approximately $207,000 for disallowed claim exempt food sales. And you'll see that on your Exhibit B, page 21. California imposes sales tax on the retail sales in the state of tangible personal property, measured by the retailer's gross receipt, unless the sale is specifically exempt or excluded from taxation by statute. That's Revenue Taxation 6051. All of a retailer's gross receipt are presumed subject to tax unless the retailer can prove otherwise. That's Section 6091. Although gross receipt derived from the sale of food products are generally exempt from sales tax, sales of food served at a restaurant are subject to tax. That's Section 6359. When the board is not satisfied with the accuracy of tax returns filed, it may base its determination of the tax due upon the facts contained in the return or upon any information that comes within its possession. That's Section 6481. It is a taxpayer's responsibility to maintain and make available for examination on request all records necessary to determine the correct tax liability, including bills, receipts, invoices, or other documents of original entry, supporting the entries in the books of account. That's Section 753 and 7054. When a taxpayer challenges a notice of determination, the department has the burden to explain the basis for that deficiency. Where the department's explanation appears reasonable, the burden of proof shifts to the taxpayer to explain why the department's asserted deficiency is not valid. The applicable burden of proof is by a preponderance of the evidence. That is, the taxpayer must establish by documentation or other evidence that the circumstances it asserts are more likely than not to be correct. When it is determined that our taxpayer records are such that the sales cannot be verified by a direct audit approach, or reliance cannot be placed on the taxpayer's records, as in this case here, the departments must calculate the sales from whatever information is available using indirect audit methods to determine the correct tax liability. Appellant in this case did not charge sales tax reimbursement on the for here sales during the audit period. The department was justified in using an alternate method to compute appellant's sales. Therefore, the burden of proof shifts to appellant to provide evidence to refute the audit findings. The appellant has provided pictures posted to Yelp to support their contention that less seating was provided to customers during the early portion of the audit period. All pictures and reviews posted to Yelp were examined. That would be on your Exhibit F, pages 48 through 57. The department notes that a picture posted to Yelp on June 19, 2009 on page 51 shows a long bench used for seating attached to the wall opposite of the counter. Therefore, it appears the bench seating was added during the second month of operation. Also, a picture posted on Yelp on June 7, 2009 on page 50 of a wood bench outside the front of the business. Note that our audit calculation do not include any outside seating at the front of the business. The department requested the appellant provide more register Z-tapes to support a more accurate taxable sales ratio. I mentioned earlier that appellant created a limited liability corporation in January 1st, 2012. In June 2012, the cash register was reprogrammed to track for here and to go sale. So the appellant should be able to provide us with this information and reported taxable sales if he feels that the for here ratio is too high. We calculated around 207,000 taxable sales out of 531,000 total sales in the audit. This is less than 39% taxable ratio compared to the overall average of 48% taxable ratio required by other similar cafes in the area. I think even the appellant during his opening, he mentioned that his taxable ratio now is 45%. So we're only assessing 39%. So in the spring of summer 2009, which is second quarter 2009 and third quarter 2009, the department only applied a 29.35% taxable ratio. The appellant was requested to provide purchase information for paper cups to support the contention of having more to-go sales in the earlier quarters of the audit period. Plus, we also asked for copies of purchase invoices to confirm the date of additional seating added during the audit period. Appellant did not provide any additional documentation. Regarding the outdoor seating, the audit calculation presumed outside seating was in use for only 4 quarters. However, it is more than likely customer used the outdoor seating during other periods. The appellant has not provided any documentation or essential information to support any additional adjustment to the audit findings. The department audit findings are more than reasonable and fair. Therefore, the department requests the appellant's appeal be denied. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any question you may have. Thank you.
This is Judge Brown. Thank you, Ms. Jimenez. I do have 1 or 2 questions, but first I will give my co-panelists the opportunity to ask questions. Judge Clee, do you have any questions for CDTFA at this time?
This is Judge Kui. One clarification. So for the test period, which was, I think it was May 15th through, June 26th to July 9th. Right. Was that just an examination of the Z tapes, or was there an auditor on site during that time period?
My understanding is the auditor was there for a few days, but the Z tapes came from the taxpayer.
Okay, yeah. So I basically just wanted to make sure the Z tapes were the entire day, not like a portion of the day, like the morning, like 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the afternoon, but it included basically all sales for the day.
Judge Kui, that is correct. It's for the whole day.
Okay, thank you. And Judge Kui, this is Judge Kui. I had one more question. You had mentioned that there was an industry average of 48% taxable ratio for similar businesses. Is that specifically in reference to coffee shops in the San Francisco area, or is that like a statewide average?
That was specifically the San Francisco Mission District area.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and one further question. There was some reference to a 45% taxable ratio. Was that the LLC current year-round average, or is that something I have to ask the taxpayer about?
I think the taxpayer mentioned that earlier. That okay. He's reporting around 45% taxable ratio.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll turn it back to Judge Brown.
Thank you. This is Judge Brown. Judge Long, do you have any questions for CDTFA at this time? And I think you are still muted, Judge Long, so you are still muted. If you could unmute.
My apologies. This is Judge Long. I have no questions at this time.
Okay. This is Judge Brown. Thank you very much. I do have, I think, just one question for CDTFA. So appellant is currently, appellant is arguing that for periods after the audit period, the reported taxable sales ratio is 43% for the successor LLC, as I think we were discussing earlier. My question is, first off, I understand that the successor is technically a different entity, but because the successor, the sole beneficiary is Mr. Mullick, I don't think there's a confidentiality issue with asking about the successors, comparing the successor's taxable ratio to the taxpayers for this period. But if there is, please, I'll understand if you include that in your response. I wanted to ask that appellant was arguing that the success, or at least I saw in a brief, that the successor's lower reported taxable percentage is evidence that the audited taxable percentage for this audit period is too high. And I wanted to ask if CDTFA can address that argument.
Sure. Judge Brown, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. My understanding is that the information for the LLC is confidential because it is a different entity, but the appellant did mention that his reported taxable sales on his current LLC is 45%.
45, sorry. This is Judge Brown. I guess I just mean to say I'm not asking you to reveal any confidential information about the successor. I'm just asking if you can address the argument that Mr. Mullick is making about that taxable percentage. Considering that argument, does that, how should we, what does that mean in terms of comparing that reported taxable percentage to the audited taxable percentage at issue here?
Right. So when we computed, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. The average taxable ratio that we applied for this audit, because considering we applied 29.35% on some periods and also 51.71% on other periods, our total average is about 39%. So it's 39% is lower than the 45% that he is currently saying that he's reporting for the same cafe, same location.
Okay. This is Judge Brown. Thank you. Then if my co-panelists do not have any further questions, then we will go back to the appellant, Mr. Mullick, for a rebuttal. Mr. Mullick, you have 10 minutes to make any further arguments that you wish to make in response to CDTFA's presentation. Oh, and Mr. Mullick, you are on mute, so please unmute before you begin.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted right now. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, there we go. I wanted to address this 45 and 39%. They're a different entity and we're very different. But I use that 45% number just as for comparison. So if we are doing 45% now, that's about 3 times as much seating. Is it reasonable to charge us 39% with 1/3 the seating? So, I mean, this is patently absurd to make that contention. So the other thing about outside seating is like, well, there are several days out when people can sit outside in those quarters that we did not count them as seating. Yes, but the days when you counted the seating in the back, there are several days in San Francisco when people can't sit outside, like today. It's all fogged in. It's cold outside. Nobody would want to sit outside. So it really is a wash. I mean, if you're going to be sloppy, okay, well, we will charge you more at this particular quarter, but in this quarter, I mean, you could call it a wash, but really, it shouldn't even be brought up. Okay. Then in the reviews section, when people are saying they're seating in the back, there is no seating in the back. People are sometimes maybe drag a chair out there or something, and sometimes people want to give you a good review and they exaggerate or say, oh, there's loads of seating in there or things like that, But the fact is that, we're showing you evidence in the form of pictures here. And the pictures are saying we don't have 42 chairs inside. We have 0 for the first year outside. There should be less than half. We have maybe 20 seats inside. How can you, if your basic contention is that the percentages count, then the percentages of the seats should count. And, you can see in the pictures that nobody is like, the place is not packed, right? In the first few, it's not a busy place. And the fact that it is kind of now it's kind of a sit-down place where people like to hang out is because we moved in that direction in the few years. And the first, you can see it in the pictures. In the absence of evidence, the other evidence, we are giving you this particular evidence, which is actually visual and more compelling, I think. And the bench seating, yeah, on one side, the bench seating was added fairly quickly, but the rest of the bench seating, which is what we have today, was added 1 year later, and then there was some added just recently, like a couple of years ago. So the point is simply, let me go back to the 45% versus 39% that the overall percentage that is being charged. 39% when our total seating is 30% of what we have today. This number should not be 39%, it should be 1/3 of 39%. Is what we're saying, because that is the basic premise of the whole calculation. And so it's 45 based on the total number of seats that are available today, and 39% based on 1/3 of the seats. It doesn't make any sense at all. And I'm not even talking about all the other things that we did to make it a sit-down place, like the tea, like the making more things on the menu, adding better cups, today we're serving a little bit of food like toast and things like that. We didn't have any of that. We didn't have any food. We barely had pastries. So it was our whole vision for the place evolved, and it evolved slowly. And for some businesses, some coffee shops in the Mission, it's exactly the opposite. They don't want people hanging out. They want their shops that are taking out computer sockets and extension cords and things like that, because they want people to buy coffee and leave. So there are all kinds of business models within the coffee industry. Across the street from us is Phil's. I don't know if he'll ever actually even pays for hair tax. He serves everybody in a to-go cup. He's got seating, but they don't make a distinction. I don't even know if the department has a flat rate arrangement with Phil's Coffee or not. There are a lot of people hanging out there, and it's somehow in our case we are being charged this huge percentage. By the way, also on the issue of the auditor, yes, the auditor was there every day for the duration of the period. He was there from the opening to the close, and he took notes of the conversations, and he was well aware of and understood and agreed, but he was the way he was looking at it is like, okay, well, the outside seating is not available, so we will not charge you for that, and that's why it'll even out. But it doesn't even out because 39% ratio of sit-down people is when there is just not enough seats to sit down. It is just not. It's ridiculous. It should be 1/3 of that 39%. And essentially, if we're going to read the comments, and we can read all of the comments in the Yelp section, and you'll see all kinds of contradictory comments when people will say, "Well, there's a lot of seats," and then people say, "Not a lot of seats." But again, photographic evidence is probably the best evidence here. And again, the pictures that I posted of the place today is kind of a very different picture. And that's all I have to say.
This is Judge Brown. Thank you very much, Mr. Mullick. And now I will give my co-panelists an opportunity if they have any final questions. Hold on a second. Okay, Judge Long, do you have any final questions of the witness? If you can unmute your mic first.
This is Judge Long. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. And I understand, Judge Cui, you don't have any final questions either?
That's correct. This is Judge Cui. I have no further questions.
Okay, and I have asked all of my questions. CDTFA, do you have any final questions of the witness?
Judge Brown, this is Mary Flor Jimenez. No questions for the witness.
Okay. Then we have asked all of the questions and taken all of the evidence. I have admitted the parties' exhibits. And I believe that I can wrap up the hearing. We have heard the arguments, and the record is closed and the case is submitted today. The judges will meet and decide the case based on the evidence, the arguments, and applicable law. Second. We will mail both parties our written decision no later than 100 days from today. This hearing is concluded and is now adjourned. The next hearing will begin at, there will be a recess, and the next hearing will begin at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Great, thank you.
Thank you everyone very much for participating today. We are concluded.
Thank you.
Thank you.